at 6:02,
How
and
many, everybody's on except for Scott?
that is correct.
Okay.
So I'll have an official roll call. Ms. Cece,
Here, sorry.
that's okay. Ms. Prock,
Here.
Ms. Gibbs,
Here.
Ms. Brenda Penn Williams,
Here.
Ms. Remsen,
Here.
Mr. Goodwin, and Mr. DiOrenzo. Okay. Our next order of business is to accept the minutes to our previous meeting. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to review them, and I'm looking for acceptance of those. So I would need somebody to do that and to second it.
I'll make a motion to accept.
I'm sorry, who made that? Hey, Scott.
Me,
Scott's
Jody.
here. Great. And a
I'll
second?
second.
Great. So I move that we've accepted the minutes. Do we, all in favor? Why don't we do it that way? Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Great. They're done. Great. At this time, what I'd like to do is invite anybody within the public realm, if they'd like to make any comments, this would be your opportunity to do so. So I would ask that you raise your hands, and there is an attendee. Actually, there's two that do have their hands raised. So I'm not sure which order we'll call, but I'm gonna just make a decision here, and I'm gonna call on Fred first, please. Hi, Fred, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Fred Wilms, and I live at 6 Westview Lane. I'm here tonight in my capacity as chair of the Norwalk Republican Town Committee. First of all, I just want to thank and congratulate all of you for all the hard work you're putting into this. This reapportionment is very important for Norwalk, and it's really important that the final outcome be fair and balanced. Certainly, what I want to say is that certainly as far as the Norwalk Republicans are concerned, our intent is to, to play a constructive role and, to work towards that fair and impartial outcome. Sadly, as you know, our registrar of voters has been experiencing significant health issues. We've known of that for a while. That's why back in May at our convention, we nominated Diana Palladino to replace Brian, and she will be elected in November. And we thought that would be a orderly course of action, but unfortunately, his health situation is worsened more than expected. And as a result, he hasn't been able to play a role in this reapportionment process. And so there's certainly been a gap there. And we've appreciated your interest and concern around that. And so I did speak with Attorney Mednick. He did call me a couple of weeks ago, and looking for a solution to this. I believe the ordinance is being changed to allow for Brian to have a designee. He will, of course, designate Diana Palladino. But in the meantime, Diana has been, I guess unofficially at least, very active, very involved, definitely has views and opinions on things. I just want to just say that she certainly is authorized to speak on behalf of Norwalk Republicans. And I know you'll accord her the same courtesy that you have to Stuart Wells, who's the Democratic registrar. So that's all I wanted to say. Just again, thank you. And please, Diana's working very hard, and I know you'll give her the due consideration that she deserves. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred. And Diana Palladino Christopher has her hand up. And
Hey everyone, Diana Palladino.
Hi, Diana.
Hi there, 1 Naples Avenue. So yeah, I just wanted to briefly speak this evening. I have really taken the time to review the information that has been provided and revisit some of the past meetings, through the recordings. And I wanted to obviously participate tonight in some form. Obviously, I understand I'm still not able to officially perform in as a designee, but I'm in an effort to keep things moving through this process, so that when I am formally able to participate, we can hopefully streamline and meet those deadlines that have been discussed. So briefly, I wanted to just offer some insight on what my feelings are thus far, and perhaps there have been some engagements and discussions on this, but I would like to revisit them when deemed appropriate. I lean towards option 3 with a hybrid of option 2, but feel as when I am in my official capacity, or if we are able to have conversations, I'd like to discuss and get some clarification regarding that. And my reasoning is 2 points. Neighborhoods, for me, from my perspective as the incoming registrar of voters, certain neighborhood dynamics within Norwalk, I feel need to be re-examined. And obviously that's why we're here. But I wanted to see what discussions would look like looking at the neighborhood structures. For example, streets like Park Hill Avenue, Lockwood Lane, and Buckingham Place. They're currently represented within District A, but clearly, in my view at least, and obviously I would want the expertise of the firm to confirm, census blocks and things of that nature. But those streets to me are clearly more aligned within the East Norwalk community, which is part of District C. And I know one of the reasonings that we're here is because we're lacking in District C in numbers, and we have too much within District A. So clearly, for me, I feel that I would really like to see a shift there. And I would like to be part of those further discussions. I know there's been comments made, regarding the taxing districts, but I haven't really seen the actual data showing that. So I would definitely like to have that information. But basically overall, as I said, and I'd like to see a hybrid of the combining elements between option 2 and 3. And of course, get the information from the firm or the consultant, the consultants regarding the impact and overall deviation, and how that's going to affect the percentages and how that's going to affect taxing districts and what adjustments might need to be made. Could there be separate elections considered for those areas? I know that's probably a state matter, but I would just be interested to see that information further. And then lastly, I tried to obtain information of the streets and districts. Esther did her best to provide that to me, but was unable to share with me due to the security features in the documents. So I really would, if there's an opportunity to review other districts as well, seeing the current options and the streets, that would be very helpful. I tried to do it through screenshot video recordings from meetings, but it's really difficult to do that. And the quality isn't good for seeing the streets. So if I can get access to that, then I can at least look at it as a greater whole and make, recommendations that are appropriate, because I'm having a little bit of a difficult time given that I don't have all the information. And I just, again, I don't know what can be shared and what can't, but I'm want to be able to do as much as I can now so that when I am official come, I believe it's mid-September, we can hopefully, meet that deadline. And that's it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Diana, and actually this is public for everybody. September 3rd next Tuesday, the ordinance committee is having their public meeting to suggest the revisions that were made to our committee. And from that point, it needs to get approved by the council. And the council has two meetings the following week. One is a special meeting at on the 9th at 7. And their regular council meeting is September 10th at 7:30. So hopefully this will all be done by September 10th. And just so we all have dates as far as when Diana can join us officially. Okay? Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak? I'm just gonna check. I don't see that. So let's go back to our agenda. And what I'm hoping to accomplish this evening is the committee members' discussion of the options with both Preeta and Sam here to help clarify any questions or comments that we may have. So I'm hoping that we can start that discussion now. And would you like us to go? We could go through each of the individual options. We've discussed the viability of some of them, but I would like to hear people's perspectives on them. So anybody would like to volunteer to go first?
So,
Simon? Go ahead,
hey,
Scott.
Ken. Sorry, I've missed the last two meetings, but I was able to watch via the YouTube replay. So I was able to catch up. But if I remember correctly, options 1 and 2 are Preeti, what you and Sam had provided initially. Option 4 was the recommendation or the request by Stuart, and option 3 is somewhere an attempt to satisfy some of Stuart's concerns while not able to satisfy all of them, and stick with census blocks as they've been laid out, you know, by the federal census, and then whatever concerns there are about moving taxing districts based on state regulations. Does that sum it up nicely? Or am I off base?
No, I think the thought process behind option 3 and Preeti and Sam, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, is the fact that we addressed concerns from a taxing district perspective as far as commissioners' roles. And option 3 kind of alleviated that issue. That's my understanding of it. And I think as a committee, we don't have to think about we're going to accept option 1, option 2, or option 3, or option 4. We should look at the committee of saying, okay, let's look at option, and I'll just throw this out here. We'll look at option 3 and what do we need to adjust that to the concerns that Diana rose or any other concerns that any of us have. And it's just a thought process of our time here. We need to move forward so that when Diana does come on after the 10th of September, we can make decisions and write our proposal to the council.
Sure. And I do think that, you know, if there is a time or a way to address any of her questions tonight so that we can get to that point next week, I think that'd be great. So sorry, cold last week in this, so I'm gonna mute myself again.
Does anybody feel they need to review with Sam and Preeti the different options again? Or can we discuss them? Diane or anybody? Go ahead.
Could we just review option 3 one more time?
Sure. Preeti, do you have the ability to bring up option 3?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, what I'll do is I can first show you the PowerPoint for option
Great.
3, and then I can show you the details and the
Great.
streets, especially the streets that Diana just mentioned. So
Excellent.
we can zoom into that and see.
Great.
So let me share my screen. So this is option 3 that you're seeing. And Scott, you were right that we tried to stay away from the taxing districts and not introduce any changes there. So here what we have is we have changes here, we have changes over here, and this one. And from what I understand that Diana had mentioned Park Hill and Buckingham Place. So all those areas are over here. But here in option 3, the only reason why we are saying that option 3 is a good choice, it's because the taxing districts, we have tried to keep them the way without, kind of, without splitting them. So that is the reason why, and actually option 2 here is the area that Diana had mentioned. So Buckingham Place and Park Hill, those are streets over here. So this one looks really good, but the only problem would be that this taxing district would be split. Okay, so let's go into the pros and cons one more time. So here we have the maximum deviation is a good 3.92%. Then minimum changes, no council or board of education official is affected, and there are no new splits of taxing districts. So that is that. Now let me show you the details. So I'm going to go back to sharing. And I'm going to. So here you can see the streets in more detail. So here, this is a change where you're looking at this area taken away from A and given to E. And here we are taking away this area from A and giving it to D. And this apparently is a polling place, which is a D polling place, but currently the school is in E3. So this was based on Stuart's suggestion, so we put it in D. And then we came in here, and since we did not give anything from A to C, who really needs it, so we went around and we gave this area from D to C. And that is how we were able to balance it. Now, if I want to focus on the areas that Diana had mentioned, see, Park Hill Avenue is over here. And we look at Buckingham Place is here. So she mentioned about these two. And if we do take these areas like we had done in option 2, then we have this taxing district, which would be split. So if Diana is still on the line, maybe you can let us know what you're thinking of.
Diana,
Anything?
I see you're still on, but maybe you're muted.
Yeah, I would have, she'd have to raise her hand and I would have to allow her to go in again. Hold on a second. Yeah, hold on a second.
There we go. Hi, guys.
Go ahead, Diana.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to
Sorry.
engage. I appreciate that. Okay, so understood. And I guess what my question is does this committee have the ability to change potentially the taxing districts if indeed this reapportionment makes more sense? And what does that entail? Obviously, understood that election day and voting, we would have to address some of those factors, whether that be a separate election for the taxing districts or however we accommodate that. But I guess what I'm wondering is that even a possibility?
From what I have heard, that taxing district is something that we are not allowed to change. It's only the districts that we have that we can change. So council districts that we can change.
Okay, because I guess
That was my understanding as well, but there was something else that Stuart was saying when you all met a couple of weeks ago that potentially could be changed. Does anyone remember what that was?
No, what I remember is the fact that option 3 didn't affect the taxing districts.
Right.
And I'm wondering if we
Yeah.
have the ability, you can see the red line there on the map, that
The
the
taxing district.
not necessarily Park Hill and Buckingham, but the ones to the right of that red line.
I just
But
feel if we're revisiting it, which we are, to me, when you look at this as it stands, Sunset Hill is directly across the street from City Hall. City Hall is an East Norwalk landmark so I'm just trying to see how we can shift these neighborhood identities, because
right,
now district wise, a council person representing you who might live in the Stewart Avenue area or on Spring Hill, in my view, and again, we'd have to look at the census blocks, but in my view, they may not really have a good grasp on the issues that someone living along the East Norwalk corridor on Lockwood Lane or Buckingham Place or Sunset Hill. I feel there's a disconnect there.
So if I understand what you're saying, Diana, would you like these areas, would they fit better in C than A? Is that what you're saying?
In my opinion, as an incoming registrar, yes, but I'm open to discussion to understand other people's perspectives. But in my opinion, I envision people living on Lockwood Lane, Buckingham Place, Eversley Avenue. To me, that's very much East Norwalk.
See, when you're talking about census block, so when I click on it, this whole thing is a census block. So this whole thing is a census block. And that is what we had done in option 2, which seemed like a good thing to do. But then we have this taxing district line, which is right in the middle. So if you look at it, the taxing districts they were made long time ago. And see, if you look at this, they're just, cutting the blocks without keeping any block completely in it. So, this is what we had proposed, that we could put just this, and that is about 1,500 people. So we could have just put this, and that is what was proposed in option 2.
What about the council person? They're living in that area?
But that
That is
option
the-
2, Diana, affected the taxing district commissioner.
You're talking about Elsa?
Yes,
Okay.
But once again, from what I understand, the taxing districts will not be affected by these council districts, and they can still be wherever they are as long as they are in the taxing district.
It's gonna create.
I think that's what Pretty is saying is correct, Ken. That if they're living within the charter of the taxing district boundary, then it doesn't matter what the district, what the council district is.
Yeah.
okay. So our committee needs to have a discussion of the viability of some kind of a hybrid option between 2 and 3. Or whatever we continue to discuss.
That sounds fair. And if I recall correctly, back the first or second time that we met, there was a point where Stuart had raised concerns that, and I believe it was with option 2, but I may be wrong, related to having to set up additional polling places, or there was a potential cost impact to setting up additional polling places to accommodate that. But I'm going off a 3 or 4 week old memory, so I may be wrong.
No, Scott, you're right. That's what he said.
Okay.
Right, and there was some discussion revolving around that and the option of not having a separate polling place, but having a separate area within a given polling place for the different districts. The viability of doing that. And that's a determination between Stuart and Diana when Diana is official. So
Sure.
And keep in mind, if we go with this, which is kind of option 2, then we may not have to do all these. We can still do this because the polling place would be in the district, but then we would not have to do any of these changes.
right, and Elsa Obuchowski has her hand up. She'd like to speak, so I'm gonna allow that 1 second.
Thank
Elsa.
you.
Hi, Elsa.
Hi, thank you, Ken. So yes, my memory of what Stuart Wells said concurs with what Preeti and Diane Cece said a moment ago, that if I was ruled into District C, I would be voting for Common Council as District C and Board of Ed as District C, but I would still be in the first taxing district. I would just like to point out that if that happened, then there would be a different ballot whenever there's a taxing district officer up for election, which happens every 2 years. The treasurer is a 2-year term. So the taxing district treasurer is on the ballot, but it would be only for those people who live in the first taxing district. Another potential drawback is that district water customers pay a different rate if they are in district versus being out of district. So that can be something that people might be concerned about, that might be confusing for people. So I'd just like to point that out before you get too far down this road.
Thanks, Elsa.
But so just on that last point, because I always worry about that. Living in third taxing district, I win on utility rates every day. But we're not talking about moving people from one district to another, though, right?
Right. Yeah, there wouldn't be any taxing district changes for anyone. So the existing geography of the taxing districts doesn't change, only the council districts.
Yes.
I think the discussion along A and C and E goes more towards what Diana talked about, and what we talked about early on is that just from kind of a neighborhood perspective on representation on the council, where do things better align with kind of the demographics of a council district? And even, I mean, I guess theoretically, when you're on the council, whether you're at large or in district, I mean, you're representing everyone in the city, honestly. But if you're looking at just from a logistical point of view of your constituency, I understand what Diana is saying in terms of portions of the abutting East Avenue aligning more with C than they would with the other side of A. And so that's, that's kind of where it gets a little tricky. In my mind, it almost always splits at the, maybe as far south as City Hall or even the Green. And so even though it's not, East Norwalk, proper, it's more Eastern Norwalk, the closer you get to the highway, the more aligned the constituency is in terms of, the concerns that they share and the, city services and things like that. So I'm not sure where you take the break. I'd be interested in Diana's point of view, is if the break just starts coming from Colony Place and takes as much of a chunk from A, going north, but kind of staying northeast. Like Ken said, a little bit to the right, because those neighborhoods probably align more with District C, which already is, C1 and C2. I don't think it's going to make any difference in polling, because there's already a split at Nathan Hale with moderators and everything else. And I think I'm struggling now too to remember what
Okay, so
said about that.
Joe left, he got frustrated because he doesn't know what's going on with the Freedom Fund banquet. So can you explain what's going on with the banquet, Sherelle, please?
Well, I think Brenda's unmuted on the NAACP.
Yeah. Let's.
Can you mute her, Ken?
I can hear Brenda, but I don't know if she was talking to us or the
Here,
NAACP.
Yeah, it was NAACP.
I think we can mute her. Mute her.
She muted herself.
Go. She's on board.
I could ask a real simple clarifying question.
Mhm.
And are you saying that if we did option 2, the only 2 districts that would be impacted, A and C, if we did option 3, that it impacts all the other ones, the other districts too?
That is correct, Susan. If we just make this change, then we would be okay, and we would not have to affect E at all. And we would still do this because this would be a nice change that the polling place would be in the district. So that's all. And if you recall from the last meeting, I think Stuart also liked option 2. It was just this taxing district line, which kind of comes in the way.
And if I remember correctly, part of his concern with the taxing district line was that upper right-hand corner around Highbrook, Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, that is,
Merrill.
yeah, see, that is weird anyway, it's like just going right in the middle of these blocks. So
I would be interested to hear what Diana thinks of option 2.
I think what Diana said was a hybrid between option 2 and 3. So I think she definitely is in favor of this. And maybe if we just do this, then we should be good. We should have a good plan.
Yeah, so Ken unmuted me. So yeah, now looking at that, I do like this option 2. But I'm also would like the opportunity to explore some of what Diane had mentioned. And maybe take a closer look at that, and also understand the impact that that's going to have. How will that affect that Nathan Hale polling location? because I know currently that location is there's very few voters at that particular location. So perhaps if that was omitted and then an additional dual polling location was added, maybe that could work. If lies an issue with, structure in terms of the polling places. But I would really have to like do a deep dive and understand that after this discussion tonight. I am in the registrar's office tomorrow working, so I definitely can do that deep dive and try to get some of that work done.
One thing I did want to mention that these little houses, these are polling places. So
Okay,
we have put them on the map so you can see that where they are.
okay.
And what you see as red push pins, they are where the Common Council members live, and the green ones are where the Board of Education members live.
Understood.
Helpful.
And if I play this meeting back, I have access, but if I pause it and then try to blow it up on the screen, is there a way for me to get this with the options marked off somewhere, or I'll be in City Hall tomorrow. Does this exist somewhere within City Hall?
What we can do is we can give you a large scale map, a PDF map we can send to Ken. And I think we have already done that, but otherwise what we can do is we can send a large scale map that you can zoom in, zoom out, and you won't have to go back to the recording.
Perfect.
Does that work for you, Diana?
Very much so. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
One more question, Diana. So you do not want to see the options, just the streets and the taxing districts?
Ideally, I would like to see those as well. But whatever's easiest, to expedite time so that I'm more prepared for, the next meeting. And, this way I can continue to offer some insight. This way we can hopefully, reach our deadline and goal.
Sure.
Can I also ask, can you explain the deadline and how that comes to fruition and what that's about? Would this be in effect for the November election this year or next?
No, next year, but we need to complete and submit to the council by their October council meeting.
Okay, understood.
For the
Ken, while you just mentioned that,
2025 election.
and also I wanted to see, I was reading through the ordinance and I may have confused myself, but were they also looking to change the timeline on this? And what they're proposing for the September 3rd meeting? Or they
Correct.
kept the timing intact?
No, instead of it being 90 days from when we started our committee,
Mhm.
it got changed to 120 days. So that was the next thing I was going to talk about as far as our timeline is concerned. Basically what's happening is we're going to review next week what happened at the ordinance public hearing meeting on September 5th. I'm sorry, on September 3rd. Then we have September 12th and September 19th in our public meeting. Our presentation to the public is on September 26th. And then from that point, we submit our report to the Common Council. And by the way, all those dates are on the meetings, the official meeting schedule for the city.
Okay, so have we already decided on September 26th as a hearing then?
Yes,
Okay,
we should have our work done and be able to present on the 26th. That's correct.
And so if we move forward with what was discussed today, then we wouldn't need to make the changes elsewhere. Is that correct?
Well, until Diana, until you're officially in place, we really can't make a formal decision. We can discuss and be ready to
Right.
go.
Right.
So again, once the Common Council hope regular council meeting on the 10th, and you are officially part of our committee, then we can move forward and make official decisions.
Understood.
Okay. Is everybody clear on the time frame? Esther and I have been, worked out that schedule, and I can forward you her email to me that confirms all of those dates. And we just need to continue our discussions as far as what we want to present. And as I said before, we need to think about what we want to do and how we want to do it. And a thought that came to me through a discussion with Rick McQuaid, our town clerk, is it's our responsibility as a reappointment committee to consider how often do we do this. And we probably should put within our report that when we feel this should be reviewed again. And that process kind of goes to the whole thought process of what Diane Cece had kind of originally, when we first started talking about this, is that District C is going to be changing in population, as will South Norwalk. And so there may need to be a real necessary adjustment like we're doing now. And we should put some kind of process in place so that we're reviewing it on a regular basis, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. This committee should make a recommendation to council as to how we should move forward. Okay?
That makes
Yeah,
perfect
I don't
sense. Yeah, I thought it was required for us to do this
right.
like every 10 years.
But we're gonna put it in our recommendation. We're gonna
Gotcha.
put
Put the date down.
well,
Save the
just
date.
say that this needs to be reviewed in 5 years or in 10 years. And
Yeah, I think, as long as it complies with, the regulation to comply with the data from the census, if that doesn't change, and it is every 10 years, and to Stuart's point, though, it said, the census is done then, but it's, a month or a year after that you have, I think, the real data. Preeti can answer that, but I agree that there should be some review before that, so that if there are these pockets that we know are going to be an anomaly no matter what, either there could be some stopgap measure or, we can adjust it with that. Because I think the other thing too is that, in addition to what we know, the potential for population growth is going to be in East Norwalk and South Norwalk. Again, I want to just raise the point of the known non-compliance of the census. And it's a big issue, I think, in both of these zones in particular, meaning people who don't participate. So there's an undervaluation there with the population. And I know I had mentioned this in one of the earlier meetings too. Even the Census Bureau itself has been conducting research, like with the Pew research and other reputable groups, and even study groups within their own bureau, who are looking for coming up with a formula for consultants like ArcBridge, so that they have a formula across the board to account for that. Because I think that will continue to be something that we should be looking at, and unfortunately, we're not able to address it. I mean, to account for it, but none of the areas are, so we're all still playing with a level, playing field here. The other thing I want to mention about C too is that when you look at when you have it defined as not having the full population to meet that threshold, it is still kind of sprawling from one end to the other. So it does kind of speak back to what Diana Palladino was saying with representation. If you have someone who's living down at, kind of Canfield Island point of view on the council, and then it's way up to Westport Avenue, they are crossing over. Someone might feel like, I'm not sure that within my district, I'm being represented, for what my neighborhood is. And so that, that kind of becomes tough. So I still wish we
Hey,
had
Diane,
more kind of
doesn't
like
that-
what if with these street things instead of just honing in on it, just to be able to move them around. But I do understand the alignment there with, east of East Avenue. I get it. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah, Sam or Preeti
I was-
could, I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, Diane, I was just going to say, but within C, for instance, don't we have C1 and C2 that cover those two parts? Because I know from when I was looking at it the first time a few years ago, and I thought, oh my God, C runs all the way up there. Like that, to your point, that's not my neighborhood, but that's also not the way that the districts are 18,000 people each, right? So
Exactly. And I think the alignment is more than about the demographics and the nature of the neighborhood versus, it may not be in common way up there, but it's more in common than the other side of A, for example.
Mhm.
Or, or in the middle of A, in other words. Yeah.
Great. Preeti or Sam, as far as reevaluation of census data, is that normally a 10-year situation, or is it something that we have the ability to change how often we evaluate the census and move forward?
See, the census does the decennial census.
Right.
So, yeah, but they keep doing other things like the American Community Survey. They have other programs where they're continuously looking at data, but then that data is at a broader level, like the block group. So we are unable to get to the granularity that we are able to do with the decennial census, because block groups is a group of blocks. And then, and plus that data is estimated data. This data is specifically done for redistricting. It's 100% count. But once again, like Diane said, that it depends on participation. So if people don't go out and don't participate, and these days, they have things on the computer that you don't even have to mail anything. If people still don't do that, then of course, there are undercounts possible, overcounts possible. It's like a public participation program. And census does do a lot of outreach, and they depend a lot on cities and counties to do the outreach so that people go out and participate. But it's not mandatory. I mean, it's like your duty, but.
Yeah, and they also invite the cities and counties before they release the data to come and evaluate, and if they see any discrepancies, that is a time for them to, bring it to the Census Bureau of any differences. So there is a program that they invite cities and counties.
And actually, we know that because we participated, we helped the Bureau of Census, where right before the data is released, they have this 2-week program where state state representatives are invited to see if the data looks good or if it doesn't look good based on their local counts. So census does a lot to interact with the local governments as well. And especially when you look at the blocks, they actually invite the local governments to look at the blocks and see if they are good, if they work with the counties and cities. So they do have a lot of programs, but then this is nationwide. And in one specific community, you may find, oh, the blocks don't look good or, whatever. But at least it's a national database where, you say that this is what you're using, and then nobody can say that you made something up.
Preeti, thank you so much. That's real good, excellent information for us.
You're welcome.
So as far as moving forward, at our next meeting, we should probably discuss where we would like to go. I'm hoping between now and then that Diana and Stuart kind of have discussions on their thought processes to bring to our next meeting. And we should all be thinking about that. What I'd like to also talk about is not necessarily next Thursday, but the 12th and the 19th of September to consider having our meeting in the Common Council room. So we could discuss that next week. And because the public meeting, the 9/26 meeting will need to be in the Common Council chambers. So with that, is there any other information that anybody needs to discuss at this time?
I'd like to just ask a real simplifying question.
Great.
If I were a citizen in District A and my district changed to District C, how would I feel the impact other than a different council person representing me?
I mean, that's something that we would need the perspective of the council people, of the taxing district people, to see how those effects actually occur.
But it wouldn't affect my taxing district, someone said earlier, I believe.
Right, it wouldn't. So the only impact in terms of services, either through the city or the taxing districts that provide services like either, water or electric, etc., only come with what would be a taxing district change. And that happens maybe every Halley's Comet or less than that, or maybe never. Yeah, so any of the district changes wouldn't impact, that, and anything that's delineated like by, District C in terms of something with the city would probably be more something social or civic than it would be, government related, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
And I will put on my hat just as a regular off-time frustrated resident here to say, I want to be able to spend some time at one of these meetings to talk about how the public hearing information gets published. Because if it's all in kind of legalese and it's parcels and it's blocks and people aren't understanding like it's their street, then I think we would have failed. I think it needs to be, pretty plain English and easy to be understood. And something as simple as if you live on, these numbers, yada, yada, on Lockwood Lane, you are currently in A, and the current recommendation that's being put forward moves you into C. And then maybe have these bullet points well, first of all, have the pros and cons. I think that was helpful, but then also have the bullet points of what that means and what it doesn't mean. So I think the communication of this is going to be important, and I think the depth and the of getting the information out is going to be important too.
Good. And
All you know, all the different vehicles and
right. Elsa Obuchowski has a comment. Go ahead, Elsa.
Thank
Are
you.
there?
I was
Okay.
to say about the census. I'm not sure whether Priti and her colleague are aware that Norwalk did have a very robust complete count committee for the 2020 census. The pandemic made it very difficult to to reach people. 2020 was just the worst of the pandemic, but there were at least 30 people on the complete count committee, and we met and talked about doing outreach in 2019, preparing for the census. So I'm really not sure, whether Norwalk's participation rates were any lower than other towns that might not have even had a complete count committee and made an effort to do the outreach. I'll just also throw out one other thing about when I said about the taxing districts, that there's the treasurer has a 2-year term. Well, the commissioners have 6-year terms, but they rotate. So again, every 2 years, there is a commissioner on the ballot. I'm not sure how you would handle people going to their District A polling place and walking in and saying, I want to vote. Well, are you in the first taxing district or are you in the third taxing district? And a lot of people won't know. So that seems like a challenge for the people checking in voters at the polling place.
I think that goes back to the ballot. So where you see like C1, C2, when you're looking like in District C for the ballots, there's a split there because of the third taxing district versus the first taxing district. And so you're literally, you have a different ballot, and I think Stuart just said that would be, that really would be the only difference, except where you have a split that requires a separate moderator. And what those costs would be. But I think in the end, most of us agreed that those costs maybe were, less, it may just have been a, not an exaggeration, but like, what kind of worst case scenario of what the cost would be to do that.
Okay. Any other comments before we adjourn?
Just one.
Go ahead, Preeti.
I want to thank Elsa. It was good to know how Norwalk had a good committee, because that is what the Bureau of Census likes, participation, local participation.
Great. So at 7 o'clock, I move to adjourn. I would need somebody to second that.
I second that.
Great, Scott, thank you. And I'll see everybody next week. And if anybody can attend the ordinance committee meeting next Tuesday, it's at 6 p.m. I will be on that call, just so that when we meet on Thursday, I'll be able to review. But if anybody else would like to do that, that would be great. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. Bye-bye.